It's such a bummer because it really does feel a lot of times like I'm the only person that actually enjoys architecture. Every time that I talk to someone or every time that I see forums online or Reddit or websites talking about architecture, there's like a negative view on it. And it really is a bummer because I think architecture is so cool. And I really do think that there's a pocket for everyone within architecture. Now, I haven't loved architecture every single moment that I've had to deal with it of my life, right? Like it's pretty much a roller coaster. There's high times and low times, but the highs are definitely way longer and way more often than the lows. Um, my career in architecture is just really enjoyable, and I wanted to make a video kind of like highlighting what it is that I like so much about architecture. Like, why do I think it's such a great career? And then again, and then I guess toward the end of the video, I could talk a little bit about why people find it uh like find it to be such an annoying career. So one of the biggest things that I love about architecture is how broad it is. I mean, right off the bat, you can split it up into residential or commercial. So if you are doing one and you don't like it, you can go into the other, and they're vastly different. Like, think about everything that goes into a house, about everything that goes into a building, all the small assemblies, all the light switches, the wainscoting, anything that you could think of, any single element, they're vastly different when you compare commercial versus residential. And so that right there is huge in my opinion, because it allows you to really become an expert, or at least try to become an expert in different avenues, if you will. Like, the way that I picture architecture to be is like a video game, right? I almost think of architecture as like an MMO. And for you non-gamer nerds out there, or non-nerd gamers out there, an MMO is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. These games are notorious for just existing forever. And so the developers have to constantly pump out content to keep all the player base growing and be engaged. And I think architecture is like an MMO because there's like a base game, right? And the base game is whatever you learn at school. It's all the foundation design related aesthetic stuff. But then once you get past that core gameplay, you realize, like, holy shit, this is a vast universe of stuff. Like, you can pick any avenue you want, right? And if we're relating this back to the MMO video game, it's like you can pick any class that you want to be, except there's an infinite amount of classes. Like, you can be an archer, a mage, a knight, right? And the same thing is in architecture. You can strive to be the lead designer, but you can also strive to be the one who does the lighting, right? Like lighting designer, or you can be an interior designer, or you can be the building science guy. Like, there are so many categories, and each of those categories have their own subcategories. I think that a lot of times it gets a lot of hate, architecture in general, because people assume that architecture is you're a lead designer and then there's everybody else beneath them. And they realize, like, most firms tend to just have a designer or two, and then the rest of the people are like the modelers and the drafters. And they're there doing the same thing for what seems to be like eternity, and they don't ever branch out and try to discover, right? They don't ever leave that core gameplay experience. Man, I really love that idea of thinking of architecture as a video game. And I really do believe it. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much. Like, you can decide, hey, this is the route that I want to take, and you can pursue that route, right? Like, you can increase your experience in that route and just level up and level up and level up infinitely. And it's so freaking cool. Um, Getting a little bit more specific here, I love how in architecture, it's very technical. It's not one of these careers that are very generic or very general. It's pretty much every project has its own needs, its own problems, and its own solutions. So when you're working on a specific project, you have to identify what the needs are, and you have to be able to meet those needs as efficiently as possible. There's always constraints, and each project has its own set of constraints. So figuring out what the solution is for the project under whatever constraints you need to follow, it just adds to the challenge. So going back to like a video game analogy, architecture is like if you're playing on hard mode all the time. I would consider it like the Elden Ring of careers, to be honest with you, because it is just a game that requires you to do the same thing over and over and over and learn from your mistakes to get more efficient, to get better, and eventually overcome these bosses, right? Which are the projects themselves, and each project is different, but you learn from it based on how you did on the previous project. So I love how technical architecture is. You have to get down to the nitty gritty, right? Like you have to understand what kind of hardware are you putting on the casework or the millwork. You have to understand how the flow of the design of the kitchen is going to be. You have to understand pretty much everything that goes into a home or a building in general. You have to have a pretty good understanding of how it works. Like I love how sometimes on a project, I'll be presented with something I never thought about before. For example, garage doors. I don't have a garage door in my house. I don't have a garage. And most of the people that I know personally do not have garages. So it's not something that on my personal life I think about ever. But whenever I've gotten garage projects in the past, now there's certain challenges that I'm faced with. Like, is this supposed to be an insulated garage? Is the actual garage itself heated, right? Where is the garage located? What does the seal look like between the door and the garage opening? Because as you guys who do have garages know, that seal around the garage door is not a perfect one. And so there are companies that sell accessories for each of these elements inside of a building. And that just makes it more fun. Going back to the game analogy, because man, it is so good. And I think I'm going to start using video games as an analogy in the future. If you look at like going back to like an RPG or an MMORPG, if you look at all the different elements that make up whatever class you want to be, like for example, if you want to be an archer, there's 1,000 different bows that you can use and different types of arrows, and each one has their perks and their setbacks, their buffs, for example. And the same goes with every class: knight with the sword and the shield and the armor, and the mages with the staffs or the spells or whatever. All right, so when you think of architecture in this way, it's really interesting to think about it, because a home is basically, or building, right? I keep saying home because it's what I specialize in. But if you think of buildings in general, each element is kind of like the classes that I was talking about, um, where there's different accessories, right? Different bows and staffs that you can get for each of these elements. And then it increases or decreases the efficiency of whatever that element is. So if that element is a light, right? You have certain uh, attributes that are related to the light. For example, how hot does it get? Is it an LED so it doesn't actually produce any heat? Because if you are using a light that produces heat, well, it's going to affect your mechanical, because now you have to probably have the AC turned on longer, which then affects your electricity, right? Um, and that's the cool thing about architecture, is that whenever you have a room, you have all these elements inside of a room, and all of those elements are made by someone who has a company that manufactures these elements, and there's competition because some people make it better and some people make it worse. In other words, the attributes of all these elements are better or worse. Now, I find this kind of cool. It's like really nerdy, but I find it kind of cool because you could then start to learn about all these elements, about all these manufacturers that create these specific elements, and you start to educate yourself and you start to see what the patterns are in the manufacturing process of all of these elements. So next time, going back to like the Elden Ring approach where you're fighting a boss and then moving on to the next one, you've learned all these things along the way. It's the same thing. You can then start to spec out certain elements, certain manufactured elements, because you've used them in the past and you have experience with them. And you don't have to do this at all. Like, again, it all depends on what class, what role you want to take in the field. But if you want to, like, I do get into this kind of stuff, like what kind of pool pump are we using, how does it work, right? You start to learn about all of these little things, and it's just really fun and really cool, and it's also applicable into your own life. Specifically me, I work on residential, so a lot of these things that I'm specing for homes that I'm working on, I could eventually put into my own house one day. So that's a really cool thing about architecture. That's one of the really cool things about it. And because it's so broad, right? Because there's so much out there in architecture, if you're ever like on one quest and you get bored of it because you're like, I don't like this quest line anymore. Well, guess what? There's like an infinite amount of other quests that you can follow, that you're still playing this game called architecture, but you're on a completely different quest with a completely different class that has nothing to do with what you did before. You can take some of the stuff that you learned in the previous quests and apply them to this new quest that you're on. So it's not like you lost, the effort that you've made. I mean, you're still playing the same game, which is architecture, but you're just on a completely different journey. So architecture, the game, man, there's just so much to it. There's so much to learn. There's a pocket for everyone. And since I'm like full nerd right now, let's just compare it to an MMO. This is not totally an MMO, but Warframe. Warframe is it's like a sci-fi multiplayer game, and that game just has something for everybody. It really does. And so if architecture was a game, it'd probably be Warframe. So you can see right off the bat, guys, like I really enjoy architecture because I really feel like it's a game. I feel like I'm constantly learning and the process is unique. It is grindy, right? It's very grindy. You're kind of repeating the same tasks over and over and over again. But it's not always the same exact task, guys. It's the same, like the same applications, but the information is different. That makes sense. And that would only make sense to you if you're in this industry yourself. Now, guys, there's no such thing as a perfect game. There's games out there that, they're beloved by everyone, but not everybody who plays it is going to love it. And the same thing happens with architecture, guys. There's a lot of us who don't like it. And this is very apparent if you watch content or just consume any architecture content. Just gets a bad rap, mostly because people do not feel compensated for the amount of effort that they're putting into architecture. And also because of the fact that I really do believe, compensation aside, I think people just don't find, like, they don't feel they have purpose in architecture. And if you don't have purpose when you're doing something, no amount of money is going to make it feel right. It's going to feel bad. So I really think that people that complain about the career, they're either playing the game wrong, right? They're playing World of Warcraft, but they're really wanting to play Halo, right? Or B, they just feel like they're nobody, right? They're like this noob, and they can't get out of the noob levels. They're just on this noob area, and they just feel stuck. They feel like, I don't really like, I see what everybody else is doing, but I want to be at that level, but I just can't. I can't deal with the BS grinding to get out of these first few levels. It's too hard, it sucks too much, and it's too boring. But if you're patient with it, and you do more research, and you open up your curiosity, and you continue to network, and you see how vast this world of architecture truly is, like how infinite, how much information, how much there is to do. It's almost like, if I was really ignorant, if I didn't know any better, I would say that 100% of the people could enjoy architecture, because there's just so much to it. I mean, even a firm, think about a firm. You don't have to like design. You could focus on running the firm itself, right? Like, you could be a CFO of a company. That has nothing to do with the blueprints themselves. You're just running a company, but you're running an architecture company. So it's like if you were playing one of these simulator games where your role is to expand the company and deal with who you're hiring and why you're hiring them, and placing them to do specific tasks based on their availability and their experience and knowledge. Like, that could be a role that you take in an architecture firm. So it's very unfortunate that it gets such a bad rap, um, because, guys, all careers, like, there's no such thing as a perfect career. uh, there is such thing as a perfect career for you, the person watching this video, and architecture might not be it for you. So, as I mentioned before, I'm not going to say that it's 100% for everyone, because I'm not that ignorant. Okay, it's not for everybody. That's 100% sure. But architecture is beautiful, even if you're not in the world of being one of these architects who's talking about the beauty of architecture and the way that the space resonates with the emotion of the person as they experience it, and blah 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 blah. Like, that architecture is beautiful, no doubt about it. And everybody thinks that because that's such a small part of architecture, that most people are not dealing with that the rest of architecture is not beautiful. But it really is. It really is, if you look for the beauty. And I understand that saying something like the type of door hardware that you're putting in the door, like, what's the beauty in that, right? But there is beauty in everything. Even the mundane things in architecture can be beautiful if you just look a little deeper. So I love architecture. I think it's a great career. Would I have done something different? Of course. I mean, like, I've already experienced this, and I'm continuing to experience this. It'd be so cool to experience everything that the world has to offer, like be a pilot or an astronaut, like there's so many things out there. Of course, if I could live this life a million times, I would pick something different every time, to just keep on expanding and learning, and stuff like that. But I don't regret this career at all. And I think it's super cool. And I think that people that regret it, they just are not looking at it properly. Like, they're just doing the part of architecture that they don't enjoy. But architecture is cool, man. There's so much to it. And if you just find a different path, right, within the field, like, I really think that almost anybody can really enjoy this. So, um the point of this video, there wasn't like a dead set point. Like, I didn't wake up saying, like, I'm going to talk about this today because I want to help someone out there. No, no, no. Like, I hope this helps. Like, every video that I make, I hope it helps someone, or at least I hope it makes someone think a little bit deeper. Maybe you're watching this video and like, wow, I never really sat down to think about that, right? Because a lot of times in our busy days, we don't really have anybody to talk to. Like, maybe we'll get a thought and it goes away, and that's it. So the point of this video is to help you kind of think a little bit about the career and what your view is on the career. Like, maybe you tell yourself that you hate it, but maybe you don't. Like, maybe you have to sit down and think about what it is exactly that you hate. Like, if you remove the parts that you hate, hated of the career? Would you love it, right? Or maybe you're just over the career. So this video was, it was really more of a reflection, guys. It was more of a reflection on shedding some light on the fact that architecture is not as nasty as everybody says. Like, it doesn't suck that bad, right? Things suck about it, but the same thing could be said about any career. The same way that the same thing could be said about any video game. There's no perfect game, guys. There's no perfect career. So to a lot of you guys that are getting fueled by those around you because they're being negative and they're saying that they hate the career, maybe it's time to kind of like step back, forget about the critics, and form your own opinion based off of what you have the ability to change from what you don't like of the career. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it means something to you guys. Hope it wasn't just like junk food, right? Hope you guys got something out of it. But anyway, till next time, peace out.